Behold, the genius Lanny Poffo, the world's smartest man.
Sometimes what goes on behind the scenes is stronger than the soap opera on the video scope.
Hi gang, this is Mean Gene Okerlund. Welcome to the Genius Cast with Lanny Poffo and JP Zarka. Both, as you know, are very dear, close, personal, longtime friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, the poet and limerick writing, motivational speaking brother of WWE Hall of Famer Randy Savage, the genius, Leaping Lanny Poffo!
Hello again, wrestling fans. My name is Lanny Poffo, and this is my very dear friend,
JP Zarka of ProWrestlingStories.com. As we put a close to 2018 and look ahead to a new year, Lanny, it's exciting to think about what we've been able to accomplish these past 18 weeks with this show.
It's been amazing, and I'll tell you what, the feedback that I get, it's all positive.
Same here. You know, if you go onto our social media accounts, we're constantly, every day, we're getting messages to us, direct messages, emails to us, just saying thank you for your stories and for bringing back the memory of your brother.
Yes, and not only that, but we tackled very difficult subject matter on this show, and I'm proud of that.
I am too, and we've had some amazing guests so far. It has been an amazing 2018 for us, and 2019 is going to be even better.
Well, when you consider that, when did we meet? What month was that?
You and I met in July, early July.
And then September 1st, we had our first show? September 3rd.
September 3rd, that's right. And, you know, from there, we've had 18 episodes, and you and I, we've become really close friends in the process, and we've been able to bring our audience some amazing stories that they never knew about before, and, of course, to allow them to get into your life a bit.
Well, the reason I never wanted to do a podcast is there's so many podcasts, but I think we've found what they call, let me pronounce this wrong, a niche or a niche, whatever.
I think it's a niche.
Well, I've heard it both ways.
I have as well. And as I said niche, I was thinking it's probably niche.
Well, let's put it this way. Even though there's a lot of podcasts out there, ours is different.
And ours is better.
And it's got a niche or a niche.
It's got a niche. It's got a niche. Well, Lanny, you know, with the new year coming, it's always good to write down a few New Year's resolutions in private. You and I, we've come up with a wish and wishful thinking list for guests to have on our show. And it's exciting to say that we've got over 50 names on that list. We can't wait to show you guys, the Genius Cast faithful, what the new year has in store for us.
Yes, and I'll tell you what, I've never had anybody say no when I asked them to be on the show. Not one person.
And so what you guys can do, our listeners, is reach out to us on social media, tag us into a post at the Genius Cast, write to your favorite personalities in the wrestling business, say we'd love to have you on the Genius Cast, and you know what, we'll make it happen for you.
Excellent.
With it being New Year's Eve on the day of this release, I have to ask, what's the typical New Year's Eve celebration for the Genius?
Well, one time I was at a party and everybody had to give their New Year's resolutions right at the midnight, and I said I was not going to drink again. As soon as the clock struck 12, the host puts champagne in my hand and I drank it. And I said, this is the suckingest New Year's resolution I've ever done.
Yeah, you didn't last long on that one.
No, not even 1 second. But what are you going to do? It's kind of bad luck to refuse champagne.
Right. You don't do a lot of drinking these days anyways, do you?
No, I don't do hardly any, except when I'm flying first class. And then, more wine. See, I can always tell, because red wine, it is said, is good for your arteries, makes the platelets in your arteries slippier, and so that's always a good thing. And the thing is, you get so much data on do this, don't do that, and everybody disagrees. So every once in a while, I try something, but it has to be, when I'm flying, let's put it this way, when I was going to and from Japan, I was drinking red wine. Good for the heart and good for helping you get through a 13-hour flight, and then you go to Dallas, change planes in 3 more hours. So I wasn't making any long-term decisions with my health. I was just trying to get out of that plane.
Right. Well, I'm Italian, as are you, and I'm a big proponent of the old saying, and I don't know if there's any science behind it, a glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away.
Well, they say that of all the autopsies performed, bums have the cleanest arteries. They don't eat, they just drink. And so it's bums. keeping your arteries clean, but it's bad for your liver and kidneys, so you got to watch it.
No, we don't recommend being a bum, though.
No, don't be a bum.
Don't be a bum. Now, being an early morning riser, do you make it to midnight these days?
Well, for parties, yes. I'm going to a party this December 31st, but I'm bringing my own car and am not drinking on that party. You see, the problem is when you get to midnight, that's when the drinks pour. And, so many people get their lives ruined by driving while drunk. I don't mean accidents. I mean getting in trouble. Sometimes I knew a guy that cost $15,000 just for legal fees and all that. So they're really cracking down. As
they should be. It's for the safety of others. And if you're going to drink this New Year's Eve, don't drive. We got Ubers out there nowadays. Keep your keys at home. That's the good thing about the day and age we live in. It's that it's very easy to get about without having to drive.
Yes, Uber is great. I love Uber.
We're not sponsored by them, but it would be good to be.
Yes.
I've never been much of a fan of going all out for New Year's Eves. When I was single back in the day, there was always that pressure. You need to get all dressed up, go to a fancy bar or club, pay about $100 for entrance, and then you wait in line 20 minutes for a drink as you're elbow to elbow with people all around you. That, thankfully, hasn't been the thing that I've been up to for the last 10 years or so. I typically enjoying getting a few friends together, making a good meal, getting the guitar out with some drinks, and treating it like any other weekend night, which is exactly what we're going to be doing tonight.
Excellent. Yes, I don't go to that where they charge you at the door stuff. I just go to friends' places. They have parties and everything. There's no cover charge anytime.
That's right. It's a bit of unnecessary pressure when you do those types of things.
I can't take the pressure.
Pressure coming down on me. You know this one?
Go for it.
Oh, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay.
Coming down on you. I don't know what happens after that. Dun, 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 dun.
We don't travel in the same musical circles.
No, we don't. Absolutely not. Now, in a past episode, I asked you whether or not Vince McMahon did anything special for the talent for Christmas and New Year's. And you said that it was just like any other day at work. And you never complained about it because the money was good. Now, this year, Vince was kind enough to actually do some pre-taping so that talent could be with their families on Christmas morning. Can you believe that there are actually fans out there who complain that they wouldn't be getting a live show last week?
Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
The fans complain about a lot anyway.
That's right. No, I think that's amazing. Did Vince ever do some pre-taping so that talent could be home with their families Christmas morning?
I don't remember. In my memory, and I was there from 1985 to 93. No. The answer is no. One day was just like the next.
Right. Did you or talent ever find it particularly difficult having to be on the road during the holidays when you were away from your loved ones?
What do you mean, me or talent? Is there a subtle distinction that I am not talented? What's the deal, huh? I'm just kidding. I just decided I'm pretending outrage. Okay. What was the question? Did me or talent do what?
Did you or anyone else find it difficult just being on the road during the holidays away from your loved ones?
I found every day different, difficult and rewarding at once.
Yeah.
So naturally, if you're home, you're not making money. If you're on the road, you're not with your family. So there was something wrong with everything.
I remember a quote Sherry Martel once said, and this was an interview with our friend Evan Ginsberg. And she said being on the road as a wrestler, it awarded her many experiences, but she never got to be there to see her son grow up.
Well, yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it. But, these people that work 9 to 5, they still get divorced too. And they still have children that go bad. And, in other words, the demographics, if you look at it, wrestlers don't have have it worse than regular people, I guess. I've seen good and bad kids from good and bad parents.
It's true. Now, before we started recording, I was thinking about Roddy Piper. On my site, ProWrestlingStories.com, we had an article drop 2 weeks ago, which took a deep dive into Roddy's acting career. His role in movies such as John Carpenter's They Live, for instance, comes highly, highly recommended. I just love how he had that line, "I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum," written down in a notebook, and it was only after he shared it with Carpenter on set that he got to use it in the film. Go on ProWrestlingStories.com, check out that piece. It was written by one of my writers, Rob Ireland, a fantastic guy who's got a way of drawing you in with his writing. And while we're at it, check out some of his other pieces on the site as well. Now, going back to Roddy, he was such a character. We have plans to do a featured episode on Piper in the near future, but give us some memories you've got of Roddy, how he was as a person, and also, how did he compare to the likes of Andre the Giant when it came to talking about his acting roles with the guys in the back? Did he ever have his friends sit down and watch the movies with him like Andre did?
No, he never did that, okay? My relationship with Roddy Piper was very, very special indeed. And if you're really interested, why don't you Google Roddy Piper, Piper's Pit, Lanny Poffo. And it'll take you right into the month that he died. I believe I was either his last guest on Piper's Pit, which was his podcast.
Right.
Or his second to the last, I don't know. But anyway, about the month that he died, we talked for about an hour on his podcast. And I expressed my gratitude for his friendship. And all I can tell you is when we were in Portland, Oregon, it's not Oregon, it's Oregon, 1978. Actually, 78, 79, okay? And this was right before the ICW. He had arranged for me to go to Los Angeles on main events with the Guerrero family. Right. And I was going to be the villain, and, I speak Spanish, 2 years of high school Spanish, but enough to do an interview and get heat with the fans. Okay. Probably would have got stabbed. Who knows? Anyway, the fact that he went out of his way to do that for me, I was not able to capitalize on it because the ICW was forming. But do you understand how much it touches my heart? Because there's so many people in the wrestling business that wouldn't go out of their way to help anybody. And I'll tell you what, there's only two people that come to mind, Terry Funk and, believe it or not, Jay Lethal. And Jay Lethal was my blessing of 2018.
A lot of good things came from your friendship with Jay.
And I'll tell you what, I also have to say, all the gang in Being the Elite, every single one of them, and there's so many of them, I don't want to mention names, but definitely the Young Bucks. What fantastic people they are. And in a day where everybody complains of no integrity, last week we talked about no integrity. And that is when you take money and then don't deliver. That's stealing. And, that's why we mentioned, Brutus the Barber. And, but that's not all of wrestling. There are some people that are in it for, the proper reasons. And these are the people that do the best. The people that give the most, get the most. And if you understand, it's the people that are saying, what's in it for me? They live in scarcity. The people that are saying, how may I serve? They live in abundance. So people like Chris Jericho, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, the villain, Marty Scurll, they are successful people, okay? And they give the most. So that's my point.
Lesson to be learned there is be a selfless person in life and you'll have more riches.
I believe it. And, you get good things said about you on the show instead of bad things.
That's right. Well, I think 2019's got a lot of good things in store for the Elite. I know they've got an announcement to be making very soon, Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks. Possibly a new wrestling promotion that we'll be hearing about real soon. Very exciting times ahead for wrestling fans.
Well, what is your speculation? What do you think it's going to be?
Oh, I think it's going to be a wrestling promotion. I think at the moment they were just up in Jacksonville, and I think it's the Jacksonville Jaguars owner is involved, possibly helping out with the money side of things, or possibly with a venue and maybe TV. So, yeah, we'll see. It's all speculation at the moment. A lot of rumors flying around. Nothing set in stone has been said yet, but very exciting.
It's amazing. I'll tell you what, great time to be a fan.
Absolutely. Now, before we move on, going back to Roddy, did you ever have a match against him?
Many, many matches, yes. And they were all great, and we got along great in the ring, great in the locker room, and I just found his personality to be excellent. And I was not surprised when he became a movie star because his personality, there was something special about Roddy Piper. And I am very dear friends with his biggest fan, and I'd like to get that fan on this show.
And who's that?
I'll keep it a secret.
Tune in the future. You'll find out who that biggest fan is, and he'll be interviewed on our show and what content it's going to be.
Yes, because you know what? You know what's so great about our podcast? The fans are the star.
That's right. And you were talking about your interview on Roddy's old podcast, Piper's Pit. I was listening to that not too long ago, and unfortunately, I believe that was the episode after he was let go by Podcast One, and he had some issues with, Steve Austin had some issues with some of the things he had said, and you were a guest, but he came on, he was humble about it, he owned up to it, and you could just hear in his voice sadness, which breaks my heart, because Roddy was always the type of person who always had a big smile on his face, and that's what was so endearing about him. Anytime he walked through that curtain, and every word he spoke, you listened to. What a presence lost.
That's right. I'll tell you what, they don't come any better than Roddy Piper.
No, they don't.
You are going to get his biggest fan.
There we go. Now let's move on to today's episode. We're very excited to have the beautiful and talented, the interview queen herself, Alicia Atout, on our show this week. She's definitely a personality in the pro wrestling world whose star is on the rise. You may know her from her website and music blog, where for the past few years she's had thousands of really great interviews with musicians and wrestlers alike. You may also have seen her as a backstage TV host with Impact Wrestling or on September 1st's All In broadcast. She's a fascinating person, and we're excited to bring you this interview now.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Genius Cast, and I have the loveliest Alicia Atout. And I met her September 1st, and she has the world by the tail. You got the world on a string, everything going for you, and thank you for being on the Genius Cast. Alicia, how are you?
That was the most lovely intro ever. Hello, Lanny. I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, it's going to go downhill from here. Listen, lately I've been watching you on YouTube, and what fantastic interviews you've been doing. So just tell the people who you are and how'd you get started, and whoever thought it would culminate to this. What's going on?
Well, thank you, first off. So, everybody, I am Alicia Atout. I am the owner of an international award-winning website called Ambi, or a music blog. This is pretty much my brainchild, my baby, where I host interviews on a YouTube channel with musicians and wrestlers. I started this about 5 years ago, where I solely interviewed musicians, and luckily, after posting a few interviews online, they just happened to catch on with people. And from there, fast forward a couple years, I had a fairly successful website online, and I decided to start interviewing wrestlers. I posted my first wrestling interview about 2 years ago, and it did so well, and the response was so great from my fans, I decided, you know what, I'm going to be the first website that covers both music and wrestling, just doing interviews. And from then, I have not turned back.
Wow, that's a success story. And and you probably never dreamed of the success that you're enjoying now, right?
No, I didn't think I'd hit 1,000 views on YouTube, and now I just passed 8 million. So this whole experience has been extremely surreal for me, being able to meet so many of the heroes I grew up loving and watching on TV and listening to. It's just super surreal. I love what I get to do.
Well, if I can just put away my sheer jealousy of you, I know the secret to your success, and I'm going to expose you now. Okay.
Ooh.
Usually the prettiest woman, the smartest woman, and the woman with the best personality is 3 women. This case, it's all you.
Aw, that's very sweet.
Yes, but it's true. And, evidently 8 million people think so. So let's call it 8,000,001 because I'm a big fan of yours.
Aw, that's incredibly kind.
Well, no, kind is when you help those less fortunate. You are more fortunate. So you're going to be, it's not kind. It's just honesty. Of all the interviews you've ever done, Name a few of them that were better than the others or that was kind of special to you or even for the fans.
Well, I've had the opportunity of interviewing over 2,000 people in person, sit-down interviews. So it is a difficult question, but I won't dodge it. I will name a few. One of them has to be Chris Jericho. I remember watching him when I was so young. I would just sit on the couch with my family, watch wrestling, and was just fascinated with his charisma. And I've had the opportunity of sitting down with him twice now, and he is just so creative, so down to earth, so talented. It's just inspirational to see what he's been able to do. So that's up there for me. Another one has to be any time I get to interview any of the guys from the Elite, whether Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes. Those are all inspirations of mine as well. And Where I Met You, All In, was one of the most incredible days of my life, just seeing everything that went on backstage and all of the heroes of mine that happened to be there all at once. So interviewing those guys, it's always an absolute blast. And if I had to pick one more, probably be Mick Foley, because I've interviewed him like 4 times now, and he's another person. He actually got me into wrestling. His Hell in a Cell match, the classic one versus The Taker from 20 years ago, that was the match where I remember thinking, what is this? I was like 3 when I watched it, and I was hooked. The violence hooked me somehow for whatever reason, and because of Mick Foley, I am pretty much, I don't want to say where I am today, but it was a massive influence on me loving wrestling. So the fact that I've interviewed him and he's now a friend of mine, it's very crazy.
Well, let me tell you about Mick Foley. You know, people say that cliche, I love wrestling. You just said it. You know, I thought I loved wrestling. But ask me a question. Do I love it enough to wrestle The Undertaker and to throw my body off the top of the cell onto...
oh, my gosh.
Actually, Alicia, I'm going to tell you a secret.
Ooh.
I don't love it that much. What I love is being painless and, you know, being healthy. And I'm going to be 64 years old December 28th. And I'm so lucky to be healthy and painless. I don't think I would be like that if I threw myself off the top of the cell onto the table. That was loving the business too much. You see what I mean?
Too much.
Yes, there's got to be a limit of how much you can love something. Even if the boys would laugh at me after I, to climb down from the top of the cell like a scared little, okay, go ahead and laugh, but I'm safe. How many times has he thrown his body and, the poor guy has pain? Oh,
absolutely. I've spoken with him about it, and it's evident, but he said he did it for the business and his love of it, so can't argue that, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, good for him. I can't do it, but I think it's wonderful that he can.
Shout out Mick Foley.
Well, you know something, when you love somebody, you can get hurt, right?
Yeah.
Well, he got hurt from his love for the business. So let's say my love for the business is a 7. His is a 15 on a scale of 10. I met you September 1st, and what a day that was. Wasn't that terrific?
It was incredible.
We met so many people. But you know what really touched me? Frank Kazarian. He comes up to me and he says, I met you in Los Angeles when I was about 8 years old.
Aw, I love when it comes full circle.
And he says, you were nice to me. And excuse me, I'm getting emotional about it. But I try to be nice to everybody, but not everybody becomes Frank Kazarian. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I've followed your career and I'm very proud of you. And he, I was like, wow, it does come full circle. You know what I'm saying? And then Brandy Rhodes and Cody Rhodes, and we had a little fun with Jordan Napolitano, who was a photographer. He did my first article back in 1973. Just amazing. And I'm going to tell you something. You're from Toronto. And in 1974, I wrestled in the Maple Leaf Gardens, and I thought I was on top of the world. And I wrestled several times in Toronto and London and different places in Ontario, but there's nothing like the first time. And I was in Toronto 2 days ago, changing planes to get to Halifax. It still means something to me. So tell me, do you have any other hobbies or interests besides that? What's satisfying all your time now?
It's so difficult because I find I'm so focused on my job that music and wrestling pretty much consume me. It is difficult to get away from it, but when I do need that little break, I kind of find myself reading old comic books lately. I grew up going to Comic-Con with my family and was so into comics. We have thousands in the house, and if I'm not reading comic books, then I'm probably playing some old school Nintendo video games. I'm pretty much just a big nerd, but that's how I like to decompress. It takes my mind off of things, and I'm just able to relax for a little bit. So those are two big hobbies that I have, comics and video games.
I enjoyed comic books too back in the day. What was your favorite one?
Ooh, there's one called Batman: The Long Halloween, which is just storyline-wise, it is absolutely phenomenal, and the artwork is great. And then I have to say Ultimate Spider-Man. I grew up reading all of those volumes. As soon as it would come out, I would run to the store with my dad. We'd pick one up, and I remember reading it on my parents' bed, just flipping through page after page. And yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man was incredible. So those are probably, which is funny, one's DC, one's Marvel, but those would probably be my two favorites.
Did you know I had a famous brother?
I did, yes.
He had a big role in the movie Spider-Man.
I'm trying to remember who he played. Oh my gosh, you know what? I was talking with somebody about this. It was like a couple months ago. And like, did you know? And I'm like, I don't think I caught that. Because when I watched Spider-Man, I was a lot younger.
Well, watch it again for the first time. The first one that came out in 2002. And he played Bonesaw McGraw. Ooh, yeah. He didn't say, oh, yeah. But I just can't do my brother without saying, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
But he played Bonesaw McGraw because Peter Parker got bit by a spider, started getting superpowers, but still wanted to get the girl interested. And, of course, chicks dig the car. So he needed $3,000 to buy the car because he saw an ad in the paper. And then he wound up in the ring with the Macho Man Randy Savage.
That's so funny. I was actually talking about Spider-Man with a friend a few months ago, and they mentioned this to me. And because when it came out, I probably would have been around 7, and I remember watching it as soon as it came out, and I didn't remember the role at all. So it's so coincidental that you brought that up. I really want to watch it again now.
Yeah, you need to. It's a good movie. And the final bump of the day. Now, they told him that he could have a stunt double, but he's the Macho Man, so he's not going to get a stunt double. He had a little bit more Mick Foley in him than I did. He did a bump where he landed on his head, and the guy said, beautiful, beautiful, do it again. Do it again. Oh, my God. So they did it again and again and again and again. He did it about 12 takes. And
wow.
And he never complained. But the next morning, he thinks, when you get up and try to get out of bed, go to the bathroom or whatever, he couldn't get out of bed. And he says, oh, no, I think I got Christopher Reeve, which was, he was Superman that wound up couldn't walk because he got thrown from a horse. You don't get do-overs with your spinal cord. You make a mistake, that's it. And unfortunately, until they do stem cell or some other miracle of science, that's basically it. Well, he didn't want to sue them because he loved those guys. They were the greatest guys. But every time he would turn his head, he never turned his head, he turned his whole torso, and I noticed that.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
And I said, how are you doing? He said, never better. And, me, if I have a hangnail, I'm going to say, I have a hangnail. This is really bad. And Randy didn't like to complain about stuff. Just another one of the things that he was better than me at. You know what I'm saying? But I'll tell you what a great movie. And fans, if you're listening, see it again for the first time. It's great entertainment.
Oh, I definitely am going to.
One of my favorite interviews you did is Emma from WWE.
Oh, it's Neil Dashwood.
Yes. And I have so much respect for her for coming out with her psoriasis.
Oh, me too.
That really grabbed, that was one that grabbed me right in the heart. I spoken to her before. I did not know she had a problem with her skin, but I told her I'd been to Sydney, Perth, Melbourne, and Brisbane in 1986. She's from Melbourne, and I was there when they had Halley's Comet, but you really couldn't see anything. In the Southern Hemisphere was where everybody went to see it. And so I said, I'll wait another 76 years then. But what a lovely person. Wouldn't you? And you got so much out of her, and she was forthcoming with it. You didn't have to pry. No,
she's such a down-to-earth and really lovely person. And as soon as I saw her post that she shared with the photographs and the paragraphs upon paragraphs, she spoke about the challenges of having psoriasis and feeling ashamed of herself. And it hit me hard because growing up, I was bullied, not because of a skin condition, but for other reasons. And I can only imagine being a kid, being a young girl, feeling ashamed of yourself for something you can't control. And it related to me right away. And I wanted to bring it up to her in a way where it wasn't prying and it wasn't some kind of gossip headline question. I just really wanted to have her open up for people who have gone through similar things, who might have psoriasis or were bullied or are dealing with their own problems. And I was so glad that she felt comfortable enough to open up about it on the show, and it was beautiful. I really felt like we had a moment together, and I got so emotional afterwards and during it, and she was tearing up, and yeah, it was a really lovely moment. I love when those happen in interviews. I love it.
What a wonderful person. And, and you were there, and you didn't make her do anything. She was open to it. And I'm thinking, how many people are you helping from this? And maybe it's not psoriasis, maybe it's seborrhea or dermatitis or dandruff, but everybody's got something.
Exactly.
Yeah, and in the 50s, which you missed, okay? But
I did.
Well, I hit it, okay? The number one man was Elvis Presley. The number one woman was Marilyn Monroe. Mm-hmm. Everybody loved them. But it doesn't matter if I love you. It matters what do you think of you? See, in both of them, they didn't feel worthy of anything and they felt unattractive. Can you believe it? How can you look like Elvis Presley and feel unattractive, or Marilyn Monroe? You get what I'm saying? It's not what I think of you that counts. It's what do you think of you? And you could have the world on the string and everybody loves you. But if you don't love yourself, it's... And don't compare yourself to people, because there's only one you. See?
Yeah.
People say, how did you function with your brother, such a big star? And I said, I never tried to be the macho man, and he never tried to be me, And I was happy for him when he succeeded. And his success begat mine. Because, I got a chance I probably got more out of the wrestling business and more out of life because I was the brother of the Macho Man. And it was nothing but positive for me, and it's still positive for me because I get to wear the Hall of Fame ring and I get to show it to people, and I make people happy when I do it.
That was one of the first things you did when I met you backstage. We were at All In, and we started talking, and you were like, you know who I am? I'm like, of course I know who you are. That's why I'm saying hello. And then we had dinner together, and you're like, you want to see something cool? I'm like, of course I do. And you showed me the ring, and I saw you throughout the night showing it to people, and it's amazing how something so significant with such importance, as soon as you show it to a wrestler or a fan, it completely just brightens their entire face, and they have the biggest smile. It's lovely seeing that.
Wow, I'll tell you what. I watched their iris dilate. I have the power to brighten up your day. And that's something important to do, because one day at a time is how we get them. It's like every single day you have a chance to make people happy or make people not happy, or make people angry or make people cry. I say, let's make them all happy and bring out the best in people. And I find that since I'm the Macho Man's brother, well, here's something you don't see every day. How's this? And boom, and then we take a picture of it together. Did we take a picture?
You know what? I did wear it during StarCast, and then we took a photograph at StarCast, and then you showed me at All In, yeah.
Okay, because, that's a keepsake. That's something better than a picture. When you're wearing the Macho Man's Hall of Fame ring, that's a keepsake. And you can make people happy, and then you can be happy forever because you have a nice memory. So
of course.
That's my theory on that. But also, a great interview was one of the loveliest girls, Kelly Klein. What a great interview that was.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank her too, because you can't do it by yourself. You need a good subject matter.
Oh, definitely.
Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she great?
She is fantastic. I love how she is this extremely fierce and badass woman in the ring, and then when you get to talk with her one-on-one, you find out that she was in a band. I found out that she sings. I found all these little things that they really make this fierce-looking person human, which I love about interviewing so much, but she still has this really cool badass side to her as well. So, yeah, it's cool breaking that down and seeing both sides of people, but she is feisty. I love it. I love it.
The first time I met her, she walked up to me when we were both signing autographs, and she says, "My name is Kelly Klein," and this and that. And within 2 minutes, we have both we love Broadway musicals, so we talked about that only for the next couple hours. Is there anything you want to plug? Is there any new projects or anything? Let's be a mercenary here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can find all of my links at aliciaatout.com. Everything is on there, but separately, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/amusicblog. Yeah, yeah being YEA. My Twitter and Instagram is Alicia Atout, very simple, and my Facebook is facebook.com/Alicia Atout interviews. But as I mentioned, all links are on aliciaatout.com, so it's probably easier just to type that baby up, and then you can follow me from there. But I post a brand new interview pretty much every day, if not every other day. I've been doing a lot of vlogs now where I'll go to conventions and sign and walk the floors, talk with all of the wrestlers on the floor, and that's always fun because I'm friends with so many of them now. We have these really quirky and off-the-cuff conversations, so the vlogs are doing really well. I also have some merch you guys can check out, which is also linked on my website under the Shop tab. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. I have the opportunity of being a backstage host for Impact Wrestling, Destiny Wrestling, Blackcraft Wrestling. It's a really exciting time, so if you happen to be a fan of mine since when I started, thank you so much. And if you are just discovering me now because of the absolutely wonderful Lanny Poffo, then welcome to my life. I'm extremely open with my fans. I try to share as much personal stuff as possible and reply to you as often as I can. So, yeah, it really means a lot. Every follow means a lot to me and doesn't go unnoticed. So, yeah, thank you guys for listening. I love seeing people reinvent themselves. I don't know if you saw my most recent interview with Jericho, but I mentioned to him, you're one of those people that has been so creative and different over your time in wrestling. It's never been the same. And he said that's because nothing is ever as over as the first time you do it. That's why he doesn't come back and do the list again, or he doesn't come back and do Y2J again. He's saying you always have to reinvent yourself, and if people support you, then most likely there's a really good chance that it'll be over. And sometimes things flop, but if you don't find out if they're good or bad, you'll never know. You always have to take that chance. And that's why I love Joey Ryan so much. It's the most ridiculous thing ever, but it's one of my favorite things in wrestling.
And he's a very nice man too. Did you talk to him?
Oh my gosh, I love him. Yeah, I've interviewed him a few times. I love that guy. He's
very, very handsome person too. And
he is.
And so was Chris Jericho, and of course the Young Bucks too. You know, you got some Cody Rhodes, Brandy. These are It's all the beautiful people are here, and then you got a few ugly people, which kind of make it homogenized. You see what I mean? Well, when you go to the circus, you see the daring young man and the flying trapeze, but you also got to see the three-headed geek. I mean, you know, and all of it creates enough variety to make you say, hey, what a great time the circus was, because the circus is dying now, but the audience still craves the unusual. Okay. But I was just in Osaka, Japan, because, you know, thanks to meeting the people from New Japan that I met on September 1st. And you should see Chris Jericho there. Oh man, he's great. And, you know, he's a heel. You see what I mean? And the people love him still, but they love to hate him still. And of course, let me say another guy, Kenny Omega. Wow. Has he got the business in the palm of his hand? You know, and he's so smart. I can't knock success. This guy just won the greatest match. Him and Okada won. I know. Twice in a row. And it's the only time where consecutively it's been the same people winning that award. I saw that tweet, and I tweeted him back saying, this is insane. I mean, what an accomplishment. It speaks volumes to both of their talents. And Jericho and Kenny Omega, always nice to me. I didn't see Jericho in September 1st because he must have had his own locker room because he was coming in as a surprise, right?
Yeah, he was snuck in the back. He did his little Pentagon spot, and I think they flew him out right away because Fozzy had a show or something. So, yeah, he was in and out.
That was the first time I felt that you're Canadian. In and out.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
A boot.
I was just in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And
I saw the video you sent me.
yes.
It was freezing.
It was cold, but everybody was nice and I enjoyed it. They're doing a documentary and they bringing me in there because I was in 1978 and 1983. I did the maritime tour of the summer. And
Okay.
I'll tell you what's sad about it. I was the top babyface and my brother was the top heel. And I feel sad every time I go there because it reminds me of Randy, and I don't want to get emotional, but some broken hearts never end, and it's going to be 8 years, May 20th, and I'm still not over it. You see what I mean? I guess I won't be.
I don't think that's something you can get over,
You love music so much. Can you sing?
I'd like to think I can. I like singing a lot.
Would you like to sing something for the people?
Well, one of my go-tos when I do the karaoke is Spice Girls, because that was the first concert I ever went to when I was 3 years old. So maybe I can sing like a verse of Spice Girls. It won't be good, though. It won't be good. Does that work?
Go for it.
All right. Oh, gosh. I'm surprised you've convinced me to do this, Lanny. All right. Last time that we had this conversation, I decided we should be friends. Hey, but now we're going round in circles. Tell me, will this deja vu ever end? Oh, but now you tell me that you're falling in love. Well, I never ever thought that would be. Oh, and this time, you gotta take it easy, throwing far too much emotions at me. That's all you're getting.
You're right.
I totally screwed up one beginning of a line. I heard myself go way too high. But that's it.
You're right. It wasn't good.
It wasn't good.
It was wonderful.
Oh, shush.
Okay. No. First of all, let me just explain something. I am on a very expensive microphone. You are on the telephone. That's one thing. Number two, you've got something better than talent. You've got personality. Everything comes out of your mouth is worth hearing.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm going to ask you one more thing. What would you like to say to the fans, your new fans? This is a new demographic for you. What would you like to say to your new fans to give them an insight into your soul?
First off, thank you for listening to me on this podcast. If you saw my name in the title and you clicked on it and you support Lanny, just thank you so much. Lanny mentioned it before. I really try to be extremely open in my interviews and bring out a very fun and insightful, goofy side of my interviewees. And I think that stems from me growing up kind of, as I mentioned, being bullied and having to face all of these different comments and, remarks thrown my way and fighting through being a nerd and loving wrestling. And it's been really cool to see that young girl who went through that now out of her shell, now being where I am because of what I was made fun of, because of wrestling. And that's why I'm so open online. That's why I share some issues and I share confidence things and I share my life. I share behind the scenes stuff when I'm at shows, and I try to get that kind of stuff also out of my interviewees and my guests. So it means a lot to be on here because not only was I a Macho Man fan, but I of course would watch Lanny, and I loved the stuff that he did with Lethal. The whole Black Machismo stuff coming back was amazing. So it's surreal to even be on this podcast. I really am a fan, and I think that's why, without sounding cocky, I think that's why people relate to me so much, because I'm a fan. And I luckily just have built a platform for myself where I can not only be a fan, but I've kind of been able to make a name for myself. And now I do signings, and I'm now among those people that I admired. So it's all surreal. I'm getting kind of emotional talking about it, but this last few not only months but years have really been a dream come true, and I am welcoming anybody to join the ride with me. So just thank you so much for wanting to learn about me and listening today.
I got emotional just hearing about it, but I have one thing to say to your bullies. Mean people suck.
They totally suck.
Be nice to people. You know what? It's a form of mental illness. Who feels better by being a bully? This world can be something special or it can be a cesspool. Let's do what you're doing. Let's make everybody happier because you're here. That's what I'm saying. And, do you speak any languages?
I studied French when I was kind of forced to in elementary school, but all of that kind of went out the window, so.
I did a little poem when I was in Halifax, and everybody loved it, but I didn't write it. This was written by Sandy Patty, and I'm going to recite it to you, I hope. I'm not going to sing because I really suck. Je t'aime, ti amo, ya te viet le bleu. Alio have tota, I love you. The sounds are all as different as the lands from which they came. Although our words are all unique, our hearts are still the same. Love in any language, straight from the heart, pulls us all together, never apart. And if we learn to speak it, all the world would hear. Love in any language, fluently spoken here. We teach the young our differences, but look how we're the same. We love to laugh, to dream our dreams. We know the sting of pain. From Leningrad to Lexington, the farmer loves his land, and daddies all get misty-eyed to give their daughter's hand. Oh, someday when we realize how much there is to share, we'll find too much in common to pretend it isn't there. The rhetoric of government may keep us worlds apart, but there's no misinterpreting the language of the heart. Love in any language, straight from the heart, pulls us all together, never apart. And if we learn to speak it, all the world will hear. Love in any language, fluently spoken here. Alicia, thank you for being a guest on the Genius Cast.
Thank you so much. You have a lovely voice. I don't know what you're talking about.
I've been told I have the voice, but not the ear. And I've been told by some of the best musicians in the world, sing softly. But I'll tell you what, singing makes me happy, so does dancing, I'm a pretty big guy. Who's going to stop me?
That's one thing I love. You can sing, dance. It doesn't matter how you sound or how you look. As long as you enjoy it and you're having fun, that is what matters.
That's what matters, yes. You called yourself a nerd growing up?
For me, growing up, all the girls would be into Barbies and doing each other's hair, and I grew up with these, crazy eyebrows, and I had a space between my teeth, and I'd read comic books, bring them to school. I'd always have comic book t-shirts, and I'd go home, play video games with all my guy friends. I skateboarded, and these were just qualities. I liked wrestling, and these were qualities where to other girls my age, this was pretty young when I was a preteen. I just wasn't cool, and I'd be called a nerd, a dork, all these different things, and just because I was into what I loved. And never did I conform and think, oh, well, if they're treating me this way, I should start doing what they do. I just said, screw it. I'm me, and I pushed through it. And yeah, it hurt at times. It really did. Does it still affect me? Sometimes. But, if I didn't stick to what I loved, I would not be here today. So I don't regret any of that stuff happening at all.
Never let your individuality become trampled by mobs, okay?
Never.
I'll be myself or I'll be by myself.
Yes. Lanny, thank you so much for having me on. This was an absolute pleasure. You know how much of a fan I am of you, and I'm so happy that we met at All In. I really am.
Thank you, and I wish you nothing but health, happiness, and success.
Thank you. I wish the same for you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Really wonderful interview. What I really like about her is that she's not just a pretty face with a microphone who doesn't have a clue about the business. Everything that's come her way has come out of the passion she's got for the business. I'm excited to see how her career continues to rise.
Yes, and there's one thing I forgot to ask her. I never mentioned it, and I'm going to tell you right now. Before I met her father about 20 minutes before I met her. And he asked me, do you think you can do an interview with my daughter, Alicia? And I said, well, I'd love to. However, I don't want to do an interview unless Jay Lethal is with me because he's the only reason that I'm here, okay? So I don't think it would be fair to just do a one-on-one. It's got to be a two-on-one. So we waited till the matches were over and Jay Lethal was ready, and then we did it. And I thought it was a very, very entertaining interview.
She's able to garner the wrestlers or whoever she's interviewing's trust right away, just with her endearing personality and just openness. And that's something that goes a long way when you're an interviewer.
Let's put it this way. She's a great interviewer, and today on our show, she was a great interviewee.
Looking forward to seeing how things go for her.
It's going to be nothing but success from here on out.
That's right. We're going to move on to our fan questions of the week. Jason Bayless on Twitter asks, was Randy jealous of the Saturday night main event match you had against Hulk Hogan? I know he always wanted that one win against Hulk.
Not only was he not jealous, he was my biggest fan. He caused that match. And don't think for 1 minute he didn't have something to do with it.
What I like about you two is, like, when you hear about siblings, there's always like a rivalry between them, always a bit of bickering, trying to one up. None of that happened between the Poffo boys.
No, actually, you should call us the Poffo men.
The Poffo men.
Okay, I can be the boys.
I think that's fantastic, and it's an inspiration to other siblings out there.
I'll tell you what, he was my biggest fan. I was his biggest fan, and he constantly, he was like being with an encyclopedia. He would criticize the hell out of me, and but it was always for my benefit. And the way he did it, his personality was so great that it's what I missed the most.
Sean Ryan asks, what was Randy's thoughts about WCW at the end of his run there?
His feelings were hurt that the WWE never opened back up to him.
Right.
But, there's speculations about 100 things. I don't know any of them. But he kept some of those things to himself. I only heard the good news, never the bad.
Dave Sikora on Twitter wrote, not sure if you want to give insight, but Randy always looked like he was good with children doing charity work, etc. Did he later in life mention he would have liked to have had children of his own? I'm sure he would have been an excellent parent.
Well, he was an excellent uncle to my daughter. And you talk about the Special Olympics, they were all his children. It's like Santa Claus. He had no children of his own, so everybody was his children.
Just hearing stories of how he interacted with children. Last week's show, you were mentioning how before he would give an autograph to a child, he would say, how are your grades in school? And then he would ask the parents if it's true, and always talking about how important it is to study and things like this. That is the type of inspiration these kids need. It was amazing. And
you should see the face of the children that he was signing for. It was like he likes me, he likes me. Very opposite of the Art Linkletter experience.
Right. Tell our fans what you're talking about there. This was on our show 2 weeks ago.
Well, 1967, I'm 12 years old. I've made no secret about my age. I lived in 429 Kanikapolei in Honolulu, Hawaii. And I'm in Waikiki Beach. And I see Art Linkletter right in front of the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which is very, very famous. It's old and historic. And I run the 4 blocks to where I was living. And I get the pen, get the paper, run back. And I could run back then. Okay, I can't. I have to stop every block. Now I just
you also got to switch your shoes. You're always wearing those flip-flops.
You always notice my flip-flops. Yes. Okay. Anyway, I like to let my puppies breathe. Okay. Anyway, free the nipple. Okay.
Free the nipple, free the toes.
Yes.
All 9 of them. We won't talk about the 10th.
What are you trying to get at? I think it's obscene what you just said, but don't even tell me.
Well, it would have been obscene if I mentioned the 11th toe, but we won't go there.
Oh, let's not go there. Okay.
No.
Okay, let's make a New Year's resolution. We're going to keep higher ground on our show.
We're going to do our best.
Speaking of which, I go, Mr. Linkletter, may I have your autograph? And he says buzz off, but he doesn't say buzz. See how I did that?
Yeah.
And the tone of his voice was horrible, and it hurt my feelings. And then that's when I decided I would never, ever, ever treat anybody like that, because that is like so bad. And that's the reason a lot of times when I go to these big events, the fans don't know they want to meet me, but they leave having been glad they met me. I may not have been the reason they came, but I'm the reason they enjoyed it.
When fans meet celebrities and people in the limelight, how they interact with you is something that sticks with you for years and even for life. I remember when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, flew out to Mesa, Arizona, where my grandma used to live, and we went to spring training for the Chicago Cubs. And after the game, we had gone to Circle K, which is one of the it's like a
Circle K is it's like another 7-Eleven, except different name.
Yeah, it's like a 7-Eleven, buy drinks, snacks, whatever. And outside there was Mark Grace, and he wasn't doing anything. He was just kind of standing there, going through something in his pocket. And my brother and I were so excited, and we went right up to him and said, "Hi, Mark, can we get your autograph?" And we had an autograph book. We so happened to have one with us in the car, and he just said no. And then just carried on going through his pockets and just completely blanked us. And my mom, being the strong-willed person what she was, told him exactly what she felt. And we were very thankful for that. But that stuck with us for years. That was terrible.
Mark Grace was not nice to you?
He was not. No, maybe caught him in a bad moment.
You know what? I've never met Mark Grace, but I have been complaining that he's not in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to stop complaining about that. He has the stats. He has a 303 lifetime batting average after all those years.
Right.
About 170-something home runs, which is a little low for a first baseman, but he was a Gold Glove first baseman and everything. And there are people with lower batting averages that are in the Hall of Fame, okay? And but now that you told me what you told me, I'm glad he's not in the Hall. How's that?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I like to use a bit of empathy as well. He could have been having a bad moment, bad day, caught him when he was in his own space. You never know. But
no excuses.
No excuses. Then maybe I'm being too nice. But yeah, no, that definitely affected me growing up a little bit. But I remember one game he had where they had gone through all their relievers and he ended up pitching. And that was incredible. I tried to look for footage of that, but I can't seem to find it online. If you've seen footage of Mark Grace pitching, that'd be good. Send it over to us at the Genius Cast.
I was watching that day, and he was imitating the styles of a very famous relief pitcher. And, I'll find it for you. I'm sure it's around.
Oh, that's great. He was doing like the kick, wasn't he?
Yeah, but now that you have told me what you told me, I don't care anymore.
Mark Grace, be nicer to your fans. Hopefully with age, he's done that a bit more. You
know what? He had driving while drunk experience, you know what I mean? And he lost his job with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
I remember.
And they got it back, you know what I mean? Mark Grace, we mirror your goodwill, so go have sex with yourself. Thank you.
I love it. Bringing it back to our questions. The guys behind the Kings of the Ring audio drama podcast reached out to us on Twitter asking, when you and Randy were both in WWF at the same time, was there ever consideration or desire from you two to acknowledge you both as brothers in some form or another? I know you and we talked about whether a feud or match was ever considered on the show before, but what about just acknowledging the fact you guys were brothers on air? Was that ever something considered?
Well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I was there to follow orders. Okay. And I never even asked Randy about that. I was a throw-in. They wanted Randy, and I came in got a new room for my little brother, and then boom. And I figured even if I had a job taking the jackets back, if I had any talent, somebody would notice. And, I finally got 4 months of main events. I don't know how many people in the wrestling business get that. 2 main events in Madison Square Garden, a couple of main events in Saturday night's main event, NBC. This is not a bad resume. The secret to happiness is don't compare yourself to the Macho Man.
Right, or just don't compare yourself to anyone else. Just be you.
Anybody. Be yourself or be by yourself.
That's right. As for our last question this week, NA Available on Twitter asks, when did Randy start using the flying elbow off the top rope as his finisher, and did he come up with that himself? It was such a thing to see him scale to the top rope quick as a cat and then leap high for that elbow. That was his favorite 80s finisher for sure, he says.
You wouldn't believe this. You're not going to believe it. King Curtis Iakea in his youth used to do that. And he had to cut it out because it hurt him. And, Randy never said he got hurt by it, but in the final years of his life, he could barely get out of the car. I don't know if that was from heavy weights or too many flying elbows from the top rope. I tried to do it once, and I sprained the whole flank of my right side of my body. Oh. And I said, you can keep that move. I hate that move.
That move, by the way, was amazing. Just he pulled it off perfectly, and so many people imitate it nowadays. But as a wrestler, you want to hope that you have a move that you can perform day in and day out that's not going to have you in pain getting out of a car when you get older. It is tough, though.
Yes, my moonsault never hurt anybody, and it didn't hurt me. But it wasn't as good as the flying elbow. That was like impact, baby. That was like, ooh, yeah.
That's right. But, you don't see many 50 or 60-year-old wrestlers still in the game pulling off moonsaults anymore.
But, Jimmy Snuka, his flying leap from the cage, I think, might have topped it,
Oh, that was awesome. One of the top moments at Madison Square Garden ever.
He couldn't walk either after that, He looked like a Cadillac with 500,000 miles on it.
All right. Well, Lanny, another year has passed, and as we look ahead to 2019, it's hard not to get excited for what's to come for our show.
It's going to be amazing what's happening with our show and the plans that we've made. Also, it's really great that we can be flexible too, okay? And you never know who you're going to meet who would love to be on our show, and you got to keep an open mind.
A massive thank you to all of the Genius Cast faithful for tuning in these past 18 weeks. Continue to spread the word. Talk about our show with your friends. Share some links out on social media, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Genius Cast. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel by searching The Genius Cast with Lanny Poffo to keep up with all the latest. Now, Lanny, do you have a poem you'd like to share to leave our listeners with before we sign off for the year?
Yes, I do. But I didn't write this poem, and I don't think plagiarism is a joke. Do you think plagiarism is a joke?
It is not.
It's not a joke. It's not a joke. So I'm going to give credit to Ella Wheeler Wilcox. And she wrote a poem in 1910 called The Year. Does that excite you?
It excites me. 109 years ago.
It's 109 years ago.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's still true today. So, without any further ado, the words of Ella Wheeler Wilcox. The Year, 1910. What can be said in New Year rhymes that's not been said 1,000 times? The new years come, the old years go. We know the dream we know. We rise up laughing with the light. We lie down weeping with the night. We hug the world until it stings. We curse it, then we sigh for wings. We live, we love, we woo, we wed. We wreath our brides, we sheet our dead. We laugh, we weep, we hope, we fear, and that's the burden of the year.
From Lanny and I, we wish you a happy and safe New Year. Talk to you again in 2019.
Thank you for making our show a beautiful thing.
So long for now.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? I'm a little high and I don't have the range, but why don't you just cut that out of the show?
That's staying in, Lanny.
It's staying in. No.
Happy New Year, everybody.
I gave up on that song right when I realized I started too high. That's okay. We take ourselves very seriously here. No, we don't. That's why it's so much fun.
That's right.
Happy New Year. I just want to say, not as the genius, not as Leaping Lanny, as Lanny Poffo. Thank you to all the fans that made this Genius Cast a big success. It's a lot of fun to do. I hope it's fun to listen to.
We can't thank you enough, guys, and thank you to everyone who's already left a 5-star review on iTunes. Every single one of those is going to help our show grow. If you haven't done so already, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Genius Cast. We're going to be using those accounts to keep the Poffo family memory alive. We had a lot of fun this week, and we can't wait to bring you a new Genius Cast each Monday, so don't forget to subscribe. I'm JP Zarka, and you can find me on Twitter at JP Zarka, that's Z like zebra, ARKA. That's it for now. So long and goodbye.
You've been listening to the Genius Cast with Lanny Poffo. This has been a ProWrestlingStories.com production. Find them on social media at The Genius Cast, at Lanny Poffo, or at JP Zarka. If you'd like to advertise to thousands of dedicated listeners on the show each week, send an email to The Genius Cast at ProWrestlingStories.com. Until next time.
Oh, yeah!